Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Running the Bases podcast. I'm your host, Michael Garaffa, alongside Nick Nath. It's just him and I today. We're going to be running this one out. Ryan and Marco sadly can't join us, but hopefully they'll be here for the next one. I'm really excited, but just for you personally, because you're the first one I've had on since we went on break. How was your winter break?
It was good. Sad that there was not a lot of baseball, but we did have a few deals that were made. Off season's always boring, but I can't wait for spring training, especially being here in Arizona. Hopefully go to a few games in Peoria or something.
Oh yeah. There's games, there's stadiums all around.
Yeah.
It's great to get out there and go to those games. And the class I was just in, the sports, I forgot what it's called, sports multimedia journalism. He said that he's going to send us out to some spring training games to cover for class. And awesome. Instead of going to class, I'm like, that's great.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't. And imagine we took this class, like, I think it might only be a spring class, but imagine like we took it in the fall and we couldn't do that.
My God.
But it's going to be even cooler because we've got the Astros here. We could be there and cover them. So that'll be, but we'll get to the Astros.
Some trash cans there.
Yeah. Wear a shirt that has a trash can on it, and just when you're walking, be like,
yeah.
That's amazing. Okay. So we're kicking it right off with the news. This is from the last day of December, for December 31st. For those who don't know what that means. Until now, I was off last week. Just wanted to take a week off, getting into the break or getting into the new year, and we're just going to start right off. Obviously going in chronological order here. It's the best of my ability. There's one thing I added in. I don't know if it's exactly on order, but this one started off with the Angels signing Jason Castro to a 1-year, $6.85 million contract. This came after a interesting offseason for catchers. There's not too many catchers on the market, and Jason Castro is not necessarily the best. I mean, he was once a really great catcher for the Astros, and I mean, he was not necessarily the best offensive player, but he could bring in a solid 260 average at his best, and he could hit some home runs, and he's a pretty solid defender, but he's fallen off a solid chunk. It's not hard to look at him and say, well, this guy once was a really decent player, not anymore. But I think him signing a 1-year, $6.85 million contract really surprised me, just because I didn't really know if it was necessarily the best move for the Angels to spend that much money on that guy. I'm sure, I mean, look, veterans like that will have high standards, but I don't know if it was in the best interest of the Angels to do that. They already have Lucroy, but I don't believe they re-signed him. But I don't know. It's an interesting deal, but I'm intrigued as to what you think about it.
Yeah, for me, it just didn't make sense. Like you said, they have Lucroy for another couple years, and I just feel like this was just, like, I don't know, it's just confusing. Like, I mean, I thought there will be days Castro will play, and he could probably play in the infield somewhat, maybe play first or somewhat like that. Like, but like for him to sign $6 million's a lot for him. Like,
yeah,
like, no disrespect for him, but he's coming to the later half of his career. Like, he's been in the league like 10 years now, and I just feel like it was just confusing for the Angels. They could have saved like $3 or $4 million.
Oh, absolutely.
Like Joe Madden could have easily gotten him for like $3 million and just called it a day. But like, shout out to Jason Castro's agent for getting that extra $3 million.
Yeah, seriously.
It just didn't really make sense though. But hopefully he, gets playing time and can make some noise for that Angels lineup.
Yeah, and then we move on to the World Series champion Nationals. They made 3 big signings over this 2-week span, if you want to consider them big. They're big compared to other things that we've seen, but actually I think that's 4. There's 4 big signings, I'm sorry. But they started off with Will Harris, the reliever who's coming from the Astros. He was actually the one who got beaten up in the World Series by the Nationals. They signed him to a 3-year, $24 million contract. That's a really great deal for Will Harris. I mean, I think for a guy like that, I mean, we just saw Jason Castro signed for $6.85. Will Harris is getting $8 million a year. That's a pretty good contract. That's it. It's good for both sides because it's not like it's too little for Will Harris, but the Nationals definitely could have ended up paying more for him. And for 3 years, you never know what this guy's going to do for you, but a 3-year contract for a reliever is really basically what you would expect, 2 or 3. And if he can produce to the way that they know he can, then the Nationals just got a very big piece to their bullpen.
Yeah, I actually kind of like this deal a lot. I mean, if you can't beat him, join him kind of a thing.
Yeah, literally.
But, I mean, the Nationals, they did need bullpen help, obviously. I mean, every team could use it. Coming from experience, a good bullpen will win you the World Series, and it will lose you the World Series.
Yep.
And for them, just coming off the World Series win, it helps to add a good closer and for a good contract, too. I mean, the Nationals really did good with this move, and I feel like Will Harris will be a good, probably setup man. Or 7th or 8th inning man to their closer. So yeah, overall just good move. solid.
Yeah, and
It makes sense for both teams.
Right. And there's not much you can say about it that's negative. I mean, there's just a lot. And I mean, the only negative thing you could say in terms of the reliever market is how, just like you said, every team needs reliever help. And you're going to get that. You're not going to get that very often. And it's kind of hard to look at the market today and say, man, there's just no relievers out there. There's such a starvation for relievers.
Right.
And it's every team scrambles and every team's going to have holes no matter what. And I think the only way we could replenish that is with the up and coming talent. And I mean, Will Harris is such an interesting pitcher in that he has some solid pitches. He's got good command of his breaking balls, and he also sometimes doesn't. And that's the thing you want to look at with a guy like this. He's an impactful player when he can be. And with the Nationals, they're a team that, I mean, every offseason you said that you win and lose a World Series because of your bullpen. And I think honestly every year it differs. I think this year it was going to be the team that had the better bullpen that was going to win the World Series, which is why I think we think of that. But there are years where it's just the team that has the better lineup because the teams in the postseason have great pitching. And I knew that it was going to be this year that it was going to be pitchers win the World Series, and that's what it ended up being. And the Nationals just only made that pitching staff better. And I saw it all year long, and I've seen it for years, that the Nationals just don't have a good bullpen. And this is going to help them out a lot. And continuing with the Nationals here, Starlin Castro signing a 2-year, $12 million contract. For those who want me to do the math for you, that's $6 million a year. That's a really good contract for a guy like Starlin Castro. A lot of people tend to forget that he's not even 30 years old yet.
Yeah.
And he's been playing in the league for like 8 years. And it's crazy to think of that. I mean, age is such an interesting number in this game that people think that guys like Starlin Castro are in their mid-30s when he hasn't even broken that 30-year number yet, and he's getting a contract worth $12 million over 2 years. This is a guy who 5-6 years ago, if you put him on the market, he would have made 20 to 30 million easily. And I think that's where I feel bad for Starlin Castro, that the Marlins most definitely hurt his reputation a lot. The Marlins really kind of killed the way he was seen because he just wasn't the player he once was with the Cubs. And the Nationals definitely needed that infield help with the loss of Anthony Rendon. And he's never going to fill that void, but it's honestly a very good pickup for the Nationals, and clearly a steal with $6 million a year.
Personally, I love this move. Starlin Castro has always been one of those, not really consistent, but he's been one of those like hit or miss players. He's been more hit or miss lately. Obviously, like in Chicago, it wasn't the perfect fit for him. He had his years, but with the Yankees, he was amazing. With the Marlins, he was the leader of that team. And for the Nationals to lose someone like Rendon and to pick up someone like Castro, it's not a huge chop off as some may think. I feel like it's more of a we lost our star player. Let's get like an above average second baseman, and he's on pace for 3,000 hits. Also, he's like you said, he's not even 30 yet. He has like about 1,300 hits right now in his career. He can easily get 3,000 by the time his career is over. And we could definitely see him on the Nationals be a big piece of that team moving forward. And he can help bring those youngins from the farm system in too. Right,
that's another thing I didn't even think about. This is a veteran player. He knows the game of baseball. He hasn't necessarily been in the postseason a lot, but he still knows the game. He's one of those presences that he is going to help out a very young Nationals team. And he can mentor guys like Juan Soto, even though he doesn't necessarily need it, but you never know. It's always helpful to have that veteran presence. So the Nationals making 2 big moves there. We'll get back to them in a minute, but the Padres signed Craig Stammen. They will re-sign Craig Stammen to a 3-year, $12 million deal that is worth $4 million a year. Like I was saying, the reliever market's thin, and if you take Craig Stammen of today and put him in a reliever market of like top tier relievers, if he is in really any other year of relief, he probably would be making around $1 to $2 million if we have guys like, say, Kenley Jansen on the market. It all depends. That this is a great year for guys like him. In terms of making money, this is an opportunity for those kinds of players that would not necessarily be making much. This guy's going to be making $4 million a year, and he was definitely not their best pitcher last year. And I remember looking at his stats. I think he had a really, if I might be wrong, because I looked at a lot of Padres stats. I told you when you were on the podcast the first time that I did the thing for MLB The Show where I analyze every team. I did the Padres. I got through like 6 and I just gave up. But I did the Padres. And I vaguely remembered that Craig Stammen had a really terrible year. And this guy's making $4 million a year. That's a great deal. So for the Padres, I think this is a smart move. This is a team who thinks that they can compete. I don't know about the validity of that, but Craig Stammen definitely not going to hurt their bullpen the way it is right now.
Yeah. The thing is with the Padres, in my opinion, is that like you said, they're in a position where they want to compete. And the recipe for their success has been growth, young, like build them in the farm system, this, and that. But for them to sign a 35-year-old reliever who they really didn't need and pay him $4 million a year, and he was not even nearly close to the best reliever on the market, doesn't make sense to me. Like this, and anything it'll just hurt them. It'll cost them big games in the season. No disrespect to Stammen, but I just feel like he wasn't the pitcher that the Padres needed. He wasn't anything. He didn't help. He's not going to help their success in any way, shape, or form. If the Padres want to compete, they're going to have to keep going young, and they're going to have to build a dynasty going forward. If anything, this was just like another move to like help like a veteran presence.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah, is that this is if you look at this from the outside, I mean, they're basically spending $4 million to train their young players and have that veteran asset, which is interesting because Ian Kinsler left. That maybe that's why they're doing it.
That's why I was like, okay, good. They're gonna go young now. Like they got rid of Kinsler, but no, they just signed a 35-year-old that could probably be a dad. He probably already is a dad. Like
exactly,
like teenagers now.
Yeah, and it's not an easy thing to look at. I think it's very difficult to say that. You know, the Padres are a win now team, and a lot of people believe they are, and I'm not one to think they are, but I think they can win down the road, and this could potentially help them in that aspect. The next thing here, the Nationals signing Daniel Hudson to a 2-year, $11 million deal. That is $5.5 million per those 2 years. A guy who was very key in helping these Nationals win the World Series. A very important move for the Nationals, and all around, this takes one of the top relievers off the market who ended up getting not tons of money. I mean, he made less money than Will Harris, and he actually was better last year than Will Harris was. So this is an interesting move.
Yeah, I love this move. I mean, they bring back one of the key pieces to their World Series teams. I mean, and you get him for that cheap, Daniel Hudson must be needing a new agent soon because that contract was not what he deserved. I think he deserved at least $8 or $9 million a year, you know, something around that, like at the very least also. But great move for the Nationals. All around, they save money and they get one of their key pieces back from their World Series team, and their bullpen looks good right now. Like it looks stable. Yeah,
and they're with that signing before that they made of the Will Harris signing. You've got 2 guys now that they spent a solid chunk of money on that both competed in the World Series. They've had that World Series experience. They're 2 veteran players. This is very influential for that Nationals bullpen, and these 2 could end up really playing off of each other and being very important players. And then you've got I didn't get the actual money on this. I never saw a tweet that showed the money on it, but I saw the Orioles signed Jose Iglesias. I didn't see money. I didn't even see years. I just saw that they signed him. I even looked it up and I struggled to find it. I mean, I could look it up now and try and see it again, but overall, looking at Jose Iglesias, getting a contract in general is not a bad thing, but it's also not a good thing if you're playing with the Orioles. So I don't really know how this is going to impact them, and I don't really know how this is going to impact Jose Iglesias in his future, but this is definitely not just a bad guy. He was a 1-year contract, but I still can't really understand why they would want to do this. It's $3 million this year. That's what it is. That's the number, $3 million. That's a steal for Jose Iglesias. That's a steal. This guy hit a home run off of the Mets in the top of the 9th. He hit a bomb off of Edwin Diaz that crushed our hearts. This guy's not that bad. He's an amazing defender. He's arguably top 3 shortstop in baseball right now. And
overall, you think?
I mean, defensively.
Okay.
Defensively. Okay. No. I was going to throw in that defensive part, but when I got past the opportunity to say that, I was like, dang it, I missed the defensive part. But thankfully you said that. But Yeah, defensively, not offensively, but he's still a guy who could hit you 250, 260, and maybe 10 home runs. And that's not bad. The Orioles are getting a good veteran player here. That's the important part.
I mean, I've had my fair share of Iglesias moments. He was amazing for the Tigers. Obviously, like you said earlier, he's a great, like one of the best defensive wizards in all baseball. Him and Simmons are have always been like the top two wizards at that position. I'm just kind of sad to see him go to the Orioles. I mean, no disrespect to the Orioles, but like they're the Orioles.
Yeah.
At this point, like I'd rather just see him going to like not a contending team, but a team on the come up. I feel like he could really help a team like I don't know. He could really help the White Sox, or he could go back to the Reds and really help them. Like he just could be like a veteran. Like he's 30 now. He's nearing the end of his career. Like he has never been a good hitter. Mm-hmm. I don't think it'll change being on the Orioles. Or maybe it will. Maybe he'll be that guy in the lineup that'll shake things up for them.
Right.
Maybe it'll be he can teach Chris Davis a few things, but not striking out that many times.
Yeah, I could understand that.
I don't know. I mean, I like this deal. I don't like this deal. As a fan, from a Detroit Tiger fan's perspective, I don't like the deal. But from the Orioles' perspective, I do like the deal. They got him for a steal. He's only 30. Got him for $3 million. You won't get any errors from him, and you're gonna get solid 260 average.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and that's respectable. I mean, this is a good deal. It's a smart deal. Not necessarily for Jose Iglesias' side, but it's a smart deal for the Orioles for sure. He can absolutely help out that young team, and he most definitely will. Next up here, we have the Nationals. Back to the Nationals. They signed Eric Thames to a 1-year, $3 million contract. This was an interesting move that I don't think many people saw coming. We talked a lot about Eric Thames. I don't really remember the team that I had him projected to go to, but I didn't necessarily think the Nationals were going to be that team. And he signed a 1-year, $3 million contract. First of all, the pitchers are making the money right now. It's a pitcher's market for sure, but this guy's making less money than Starlin Castro, and he's making less money than Jason Castro. He is all around making $3.85 million less than Jason Castro. That just goes to show you how deep the first base market is and how valuable a catcher is in today's game. And I feel bad for Eric Thames. This is a guy who was one of the best players in baseball when he came back from Korea.
Yeah.
I mean, he was hitting home run after home run. He was a threat to win the home run title. And here he is. He had a big home run in the wild card game against the Nationals, who were just getting all of their enemies. But this is I don't really understand why they would take this move. I don't know. I think for the Nationals is a great deal.
Amazing.
And it's a steal. I mean, you've got a first baseman here who's going to fill in at first base. You don't have Ryan Zimmerman right now. This is your first baseman for the year, which also makes me believe that they're not going for Ryan Zimmerman. I think that's a bad move, but I don't really understand why Thames decided to take this deal. I'm not so sure about it. And I think I definitely think he could have done better money-wise.
For sure. I mean, for the Nationals, the theme of this episode has been they've gotten steals.
Yeah.
And great job to them in their front office. I mean, they've seen players that haven't been picked up yet.
I'm sure it helps that they won the World Series.
I think it does too a little bit. But to get them for $3 million, like you said, he wasn't one of the best players out of Korea. Like he was hitting home run after home run after home run. Like he was like on some like John Carlos Stanton, Judge type of wave. Like he was amazing. And like you said, he had the big play in the wild card game. Like I don't know. I thought his value was at least like $6 million a year. Like, at the very least. I mean, he's 33 though. Like he is kind of up there in age. But like Jose Iglesias is like making about the same money as him.
Yeah, exactly the same amount. And it just I don't know. It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. But shout out to Eric Thames. Hopefully he's in a contract year obviously with 1-year deals. Hopefully he can do well for the Nationals and then get a bigger contract later on. Yeah,
and something I said in one of the podcasts in the over break was the amount of 1-year deals we've seen is ridiculous. The market next year is going to be filled with players because, I mean, you've got guys, I'm going to look back. I mean, we have Edwin Encarnacion, Rich Hill, Homer Bailey. We also had, I remember, what was his name? There was Eric Sogard, Justin Smoke, Julio Teheran, Maikel Franco, Travis Shaw, Cesar Hernandez, Dellin Betances. Betances has some options, but that's just in the last 2 podcasts of players that took 1-year contracts. I mean, the offseason next year, the market's going to be filled. And I think that's a big deal. It's a very big deal. But continuing with the 1-year deal, Steve Cishek, and continuing with the White Sox, a White Sox deal, another one, signing Steve Cishek, a 1-year, $6 million contract, continuing with the relievers making more money. But this is a big move. This is a under the radar move. Cishek was being sought out by a lot of teams, and the White Sox, man, they're going on. They're going for it. And right now, the way I'm looking at it, when they signed Grandal, everyone was like, "What are you doing? You're not competing this year." And then you look at the Twins and you look at the Indians. The Indians haven't done anything.
Nope.
The only thing the Twins did was sign Rich Hill and Homer Bailey. The White Sox are the favorites to win the division right now.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, well, what do you think? I'm going to say the Tigers are?
Well, I mean, in my dreams you would say that.
Yeah, that's true.
Back in 2012 and 13, you would say that.
Oh, of course I would. But yeah, no, I can't even. I'm not going to even play around with that.
Don't say it. It's fine.
No.
It's fine. We'll strike the real. It's fine.
Yeah. You'll go and, yeah, you know what? It's possible.
Thank you.
You can't doubt anything. I mean, but you also were the worst team in baseball mathematically. Right. So
sure.
If you made it to the postseason, I think it would probably be the biggest shock in baseball.
I'm down.
But look, anyone's down for dramatics. But yeah, Steve Cishek going to the White Sox, that's obviously a really big move. And I think this is a great deal for them. Both sides, just a very smart contract.
Yeah, I hate this move from a fan's perspective. Obviously, I'm scared of Steve Cishek, the submarine pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he is 33 though. I do get the contract situation, but again, the White Sox are hungry this year, and they're trying to make moves like back they did in like 07, 08 with the Konerko and Adam Dunn days. But yeah, I'm scared.
The good old days.
Yeah, the good old South Side days.
Mm-hmm.
But this team's looking good. They just bolstered their bullpen obviously with Cishek, and I'm scared. They are the favorites from the division. I think them and the Twins and the Indians is a 3-team race. You can just count the Royals and the Tigers. Sorry, blank. But we're on the downside this year.
Oh, yeah. That's if he's going to deny that, then I don't know.
He won't deny it. You know him.
I mean, yeah, if he's going to, whatever. It's okay. At least we know that that the Royals are not going to crack 500 this year. Watch them crack 500 and we'll be like, wow, okay. But no, especially with the White Sox getting this much better, I think it's going to be harder for them to crack 500.
Right.
But the White Sox are just, they're going for it. You've got Yohan Moncada. Yeah. You've got, what was the guy who's Eloy Jimenez? You've got Giolito. You've got Reynaldo Lopez is coming off the best year of his career. Right. Dylan Cease is about to make his second year in the big leagues, and he's going to be more kind of ready this year. You've got James McCann, who is
James McCann,
and you know very well James McCann's very, very good. And
not on the Tigers, but
no, not on the Tigers at all.
The White Sox, he's wants to hit number 330.
Yeah,
right.
So that's and you've got Edwin Encarnacion. They are a powerhouse, and they are going to be a powerhouse right now. I think the only thing that'll hold them back is their bullpen. They don't have the bullpen necessarily to be a postseason contender.
This helps though.
Absolutely.
This is a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
And hopefully the trade deadline, they make a couple moves.
Yeah, and if they go out there and get, I mean, I don't know who's left on the market for the bullpen. But if they go out there and get someone for the bullpen, or let's say they sign Josh Donaldson, I mean, if you're going out there and you're looking at the players left on the market, the White Sox, I'm sure, can get some help. And they're right there. They're so close to being like a very solid lock for first place in the division, but I don't know if they are quite yet. Staying with the AL, we've got another catcher signing for $6.75 million with his former team, Robinson Chirinos, the team he came from. There's been a lot of that this offseason where we've seen players go back to the teams they came from. One of them will be coming up last in the podcast. But Robinson Chirinos, a very, very interesting deal with the 1-year $6.75 million contract. I was thinking he was going to the Red Sox. A lot of people were talking. I don't remember what you guys predicted, but I don't remember if anyone said the Rangers. I think someone might have, but the Rangers are clearly now scrambling because they were all in on Anthony Rendon. They were putting their chips in and they were not backing down, and then they didn't even come close. And I think they were put in a little bit of shock by that. And with that, they didn't really know what to do. And they got their former catcher back, who is now going to be one of the best offensive man. We also forgot Nomar Mazara is now in the White Sox too. But they lost him. Rougned Odor's not the player he once was. They don't, I mean, other than Joey Gallo, the Rangers don't really have a team. I mean, they're flailing. They were one of the best, not the best, but they were one of the top teams in baseball in 2015 and 16, and then they just fell off because Rougned Odor did, and Mazara didn't play the way he was supposed to. And I just feel bad for the Rangers. They become an irrelevant team, which is too bad.
It is. I mean, you come so close to win the World Series like twice. You one strike away twice against the Cardinals. And it's just a shame. Ever since Josh Hamilton left, man, that team just hasn't been the same. Like we haven't seen that same firepower from Arlington. But this Trinos deal, I don't know. There's not much to say about it. I mean, he's coming back to Texas. Like you said, the Texans, the Rangers are just they're treading water at this point.
Yeah.
Like, they are looking to be dead last in the AL West. I mean, hopefully, I really hope the Angels aren't last in the AL West for Mike Trout's sake.
I'd be shocked.
I would be too, honestly. But, like, yeah, I can't see a team finishing worse in that division.
Yeah, other than the Mariners, maybe.
Nah, the Mariners...
But they also have J.P. Crawford starting a full season this year at shortstop, so you never know. It's... I don't know. The Mariners are an interesting case, but that's another story for another time. But
the Rangers just aren't looking good right now.
Yeah, I want to have a whole podcast where I discuss like the rosters of every team. That's one thing that I do like to do, or maybe split it into two. I did that last year, but I only had 30-minute intervals to do it. So
maybe do AL and NL.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of doing. Is because I did that last year on my other podcast. That it was me and my co-host covered every opening day lineup that was projected for the team. And I think that'll be fun to do again. But then we go over to some arbitration. Only one thing from arbitration was really notable. Arbitration, I was talking to you about it before the show, how it's probably the most confusing thing in baseball. I mean, I think everybody has a different idea of what arbitration is. And it doesn't really, I don't know, it's weird. Arbitration is just a strange, interesting time in baseball where most times it never even happens because they avoid it with contracts, which is what the case was here with Mookie Betts signing the record arbitration avoiding contract of $27 million this year. I mean, arbitration is just so weird that the main reason why I wanted to talk about it is just because it's a record. Anytime you see a record, whether you understand it or not, you have to bring it up. So I think that's interesting. But I don't know. What's your take on this?
Like you said, it's just confusing. Like you said, it's in the middle of their contract. Like, and most of them end up being 1-year deals. And for me, it's I don't know. The whole topic for me is just confusing. Like, I don't even know what the word means at this point.
Yeah, exactly. It's I don't know. It's the only thing worth mentioning. Mookie Betts signs a record contract.
That's great for the Red Sox for 1 year. But
the only thing is now with the potential of Alex Cora being fired for the year, or we would presume that
banned. Harry's been banned.
Well, we would presume that if that's the case, that he would probably be fired.
Yeah.
That or maybe even for longer because he was the ringleader. You never know. We didn't even think about that. Because I mean, AJ Hinch was. We'll talk about that more. But AJ Hinch was just the manager. He didn't even promote it, but Alex Cora was reportedly the one who started it. So maybe he'll get more years. He might get 2 or 3. You never know.
I can't see him landing another job ever again.
No, I completely agree. I mean, AJ Hinch might never land a job.
Well, I feel like the GM will though.
Yeah, possibly. I think it's down. I think. Look, if you find a really desperate team, they might. You know, if you've got like the White Sox are like, you know what, we're just going to take you anyway, just to get that last push.
Because honestly, like I read reports, he didn't know about it, and like that's probably what got him.
Well, AJ Hinch, Leno or
Leno.
Oh yeah,
Leno didn't even know about it, and he was just like, okay, well, like that's what got him in more trouble with MLB was because like, okay, you're the GM, you should know what's going on with your team. But then he was just like, well, like, no one told me, kind of a thing. Like, and I feel like if he would have known, this wouldn't have happened in the first place.
Possibly, yeah.
And he would have fired Cora, essentially. And then I think a team should go and get him, honestly.
Yeah.
That'd be a great move for them. That'd be a great move for the front office.
Yeah, and any team. You never know.
Yeah.
But, yeah, moving on from arbitration, moving on to an even more confusing thing that happened was there was a lot going on in this trade. Was the Cardinals and Rays made a very interesting trade that has a lot of big words. So I'm just going to read out the tweet. The St. Louis Cardinals trading Jose Martinez and Randy Arozarena and a compensation A pick after the first round to the Tampa Bay Rays for left-handed pitching prospect Matt Liberatore, a low-level catching prospect, and a compensation B pick post-second round, which is basically, from playing MLB The Show, I know that a compensation round is a round where only a few teams get to make another extra draft pick. So that's... look, this is an interesting move because the Rays just kind of stole Jose Martinez from the Cardinals. And I don't remember what the connection was with Jose Martinez in the Rays, but I remember people were saying that it was like fate and that it was an amazing deal that they've been wanting to happen. But Randy Arozarena, I know, is a very good player because he's a name that I know. And when I know a prospect's name, then that means that they're pretty good because I don't focus on that too much. But I know he's a good player. He's a very solid player. And they gave up those two guys and a compensation pick after the first round for one prospect, a low catcher, and a B compensation pick. I feel like this is like a one-sided trade. I don't know who thought this was a smart idea, but I don't know. Looking at this, it kind of confuses me, but I'm intrigued as to what you're thinking about it.
I'm just mostly focused on the big name and Jose Martinez, and the Rays stole him. This is a guy in 2018 at 305, 83 RBIs. That's a great pickup for the Rays. And like you said, the fact that it's low compensation B pick, I just can't imagine it being anything good. Who knows? Maybe that kid will be the next Mike Trout or something.
Yeah,
I highly doubt it. But as of right now, this move looks like it was good for the Rays. Jose Martinez is a great pickup for them. It'll definitely help their outfield a lot. And the Rays are also an interesting team that I'm excited to see in 2020.
Yeah, and they're one of those low market teams. They don't have the money to spend, and the only way they can get good players is through trades or through picking up diamonds in the rough.
And they did.
Yeah, and that's what they got. And hopefully, I'm assuming that the Rays are probably going to be taking a lot of the contract with the fact that the Cardinals basically just handed him to them.
Yeah.
I think that that's probably the only thing I could understand for why they would agree to this deal, the Cardinals. But for the Cardinals, I'm confused as to why they would do this.
Oh, did they not have the money to re-sign Jose, or was it just the outfield was too crowded? Or?
I don't know, but he's not he's a younger player, so I'm sure he has many years left.
He's 33.
Well, I don't know how long he's been playing for, but
since 2016, I guess.
Yeah, so I think he's probably I think he's still on that first contract, so he probably still has a couple of years left where he doesn't have to worry about being paid. So that's why I think the Rays are getting a really good player here that they're most definitely not going to go out and re-sign depending on how he plays. But look, for the Rays, this is one of those deals you look at and you say, well, the Rays really got away with one. And for the Cardinals, giving away one of their top prospects as well as arguably their most potent bat in the lineup other than Paul Goldschmidt, this is one of those moves that I don't really know. I'm not so sure about. I believe, isn't Marcell Ozuna still in the market? He is. Marcell Ozuna is still in the market, so they don't know that they're getting him back. So,
okay.
So they're possibly down two outfielders right now.
They don't have an outfielder right now. That's cool.
Except for Harrison Bader, but he's not going to contribute except for with his gloves. So I don't know. This is a really interesting deal. There's a lot going on here. I'm assuming that the Cardinals did this hoping they're getting Ozuna back, but I don't really know. We'll have to wait and see.
And Jose Martinez's contract is only 2 years, $3.25 million.
That's really not bad.
That's amazing. That's literally less than $1 million, less than $500,000 a year. No, $1.5 million.
Yeah.
And shout out to the Rays, man. They got a steal.
Yeah, and
now. We'll see if that comes with that low.
The low compensation.
Right.
Yeah. You've got the low-level catching prospect and the compensation B pick. Great. So we'll see.
Next Babe Ruth.
Yeah. You have Matthew Liberatore. He's not a bad pitcher, but I don't know. This will be interesting. But then something that hit a little bit home, Todd Frazier, Mr. Frank Sinatra, is leaving New York. He's heading off to the Texas Rangers, another player going to the Rangers. And first of all, this is how they're filling their third base void that they were trying to fill with Anthony Rendon. I don't know why they would think that's a smart idea, but look, Todd Frazier's a veteran player. It's been said time and time again that he was one of the biggest reasons why the Mets have so much life in them, because he's just one of those guys. He's going to rally the troops. He gets you going. He'll get in that clubhouse. He'll start getting people amped up, and that's what they need. This is one of those guys that is going to get your clubhouse ready and willing to play baseball. And I think for the Rangers, first of all, Todd Frazier is going to be playing every day now. That's something he hasn't had since he was on the Reds. Since he was on the Yankees, but even then, he wasn't playing every day. And I think this is a good opportunity for him. He could be playing consistently and might even return to, even if he returns to like half of the form he was. This is a guy who hasn't hit over 220 in the last 4 years. If he could hit 240 and maybe hit 20 home runs, then the Rangers just got a really good pick for $5 million this year. I think it's a good move for them.
I like this move a lot. I mean, I was bashing the Rangers earlier up to their Robinson Chirinos move, but this is a great move. You get Todd Frazier, Todd Father, there it is, who once was a former home run derby champion, who once was hitting like 30 bombs a year with the Reds, was an amazing piece to the Yankees. I don't know how you feel about him in the Mets, but he contributed.
Yeah, I mean, look, he didn't really do much. He was kind of useless. I mean, he'll always be remembered for his 3-run home run against the Nationals. But I think the only reason that Mets have a good view of him is because he was just such a great
clubhouse guy.
Yeah. When we lost him, a lot of Mets fans were upset that we lost him. And I think the main reason was because he was just a great personality. Mm-hmm. He really rallied the troops, and that's something that he's going to be very valuable for, because he wasn't playing every day. This is a guy who wasn't going to play maybe even 50 games for the Mets. Yes, he'd be a pinch hitter, but he's not going to be playing all the time.
And I can so see if he has a great first half of the year, I can see him going to a contending team at the trade deadline.
Yeah, possibly.
Helping a veteran team. Because like you say, he's a clubhouse guy, and he's clutch in big moments. And I can totally see him playing for, like, I don't know, like maybe the Braves or some team that is lacking at third base. Actually, not the Braves.
Well, the Braves are right now.
Oh yeah, they lost
Donaldson.
They lost Donaldson. So yeah, exactly. Maybe they go to the Braves at the trade deadline. It's a big 3-run home run in the playoffs, something like that
against the Mets. But yeah,
I don't want to say it.
I don't want to say it, but I know it was implied. But yeah, I mean, Todd's a great guy, and that's something I didn't even think of with all of these one-year deals, is that there's a very high likelihood that these people get traded at the deadline. I mean, there is a very good chance that we don't see these players finish the year with these teams, except for maybe a few of them. But the guys that are on teams like the Rangers, Todd Frazier, you're right, that he could very well be traded to another team at the deadline, and that'll cause some interesting things. And another guy going back to his former team, this is Alex Wood of the formerly of the Reds. He is going back to the Dodgers on a 1-year, $4 million contract. I don't remember how long he was with the Reds, but I think it was 2 years. I want to say it was 2 years. He was a good player, and he was a very solid pitcher, but he was obviously at his best with the Dodgers, and the Reds were hoping for, oh, that's right, he was in that Puig-Kemp trade, the most confusing trade ever. That was last offseason. Yeah. That was the Puig-Kemp trade for Homer Bailey. Mm-hmm. That was another one of those, like, what the heck is going on? But this is a smart move for the Dodgers. Whether he's in the bullpen or the starting rotation, this guy can make an impact, and he has. He's done well with the Dodgers. He had a rough year this year. I believe he was actually injured all year anyway, but he is not going to be your ace, especially with Walker Buehler and Clayton Kershaw, but he could be a really good number 3 or 4 guy. And they're losing Rich Hill, so that might also put him in the rotation. So I don't know. This is going to be and this is one of those wild card deals, but it's a very low risk, high reward kind of contract for me.
Yeah, I love this move. I mean, the Wood's coming off 2 years removed from a year where he went 16-3 with a sub-3 ERA, which is a great year by any means. And this just helps their rotation. I mean, they have Buehler, they have, gotta say, Kershaw. Do they have Ryu's?
No, Ryu left.
Ryu left. Okay, so yeah, this is a replacement.
Yeah, that's true.
This is a replacement for Ryu and for Rich Hill now. This will probably be their number 3 guy.
Yeah,
I could see him being number 2 by the end of the year if Kershaw's out of there.
Yeah, I can understand.
But Buehler and Wood, that doesn't sound like a bad combination to me.
Yeah,
it's something like we've seen before. Like we've seen better duos, obviously, but in the Dodgers' sake, it's not worst case scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think any team would be good to have Alex Wood. And again, he could be another one, depending on how the Dodgers are doing. He could be another piece of trade bait if he's not playing up to standards. And you never know, they might throw Kenta Maeda back in that rotation. Julio Urias, I'm sure, is going to get his chance. So this could lead to a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. But we got to finish off the podcast. We're not going to talk too much about it because it's just the two of us, and we're going to have our specialty show starting. I don't know whether it's this upcoming Sunday or the Sunday after.
Next Sunday.
Which we'll have to wait and see. And if it is, then we'll take it from there. But if that is the next show, then we'll talk about the Astros then. But still, the Astros, their punishment was brought down on them. They banned the owner I'm sorry, not the owner. They banned the general manager, Jeff Luhnow, I believe that's how you pronounce it, and the manager, AJ Hinch.
For a year.
Yes. And they also put a $5 million fine on them and took away their first-round draft picks for the next, and I believe, and second-round draft picks for the next 2 years. So that was already one of those, like, wow, this is insane. And a lot of stuff has been going on about it. We've seen a lot of people talking about these things. And first of all, you've got, they lost first and second round draft picks in the next 2 years. That's insane. The Dodgers, people were saying that this is a little bit too friendly and not harsh enough. I disagree. I think this is harsh. I think they are losing their general manager and manager. They fired, the owner proceeded to fire them, which means that they now have to look for a new manager and general manager with a month left until spring training. And they also are down $5 million. And they don't get 4 draft picks in the next 2 years, which also messes up their future big time. So the Astros might be going down a downward spiral of just falling. This is really, I mean, look, they have an amazing team, but this is going to really, really hurt them. And I mean, they said that it was mainly player based, but because AJ Hinch, and they said that Luhnow knew about it. You said that he didn't, but he's claiming that he didn't. They decided to get rid of them both. And they also are saying that the Alex Cora decision will be coming up soon, which could possibly be very bad. I said it before that he was the ringleader of this reportedly, and you also have Carlos Beltran, who was reportedly a big ringleader too, but he was a player, can't hurt him. So, I mean, you can, but they're choosing not to. So, look, if I'm Rob Manfred, I think I understand why he decided to just go with staff, because think about it. If you are going to ban or suspend every person who was involved, then the Astros are down like 40 people probably. Yeah. And even players on other teams, because it was said that this was happening all the way back in 2014. Logan Morrison claimed that he heard a banging in one of the 2014 games against the Mariners in game 162, I believe it was, or whenever. And there's video where you actually hear a bang in the middle of that game when he's talking about it. And I think it is, if you were to ban all those players, then the Astros would be, first of all, a joke to baseball. They already are looking like a joke, but I don't know. There's a lot coming, and I just got a tweet right now about Carlos Beltran, but it's not relevant, but just timing. But this is, I don't know, what's your take on this whole situation?
Well, obviously we're in sociology when it all happened.
Yeah.
When the punishments were handed out. It was crazy. It shook the world, obviously, from a baseball fan's perspective. Were they too harsh? Were they too lenient? If they would have suspended some players like Altuve, Springer, Correa, that would have been too harsh.
Yeah.
The fact that they stayed away from the players and only went after staff, I think it was fair.
Yeah,
I don't think it's fair they lost their draft picks though. That I don't agree with, especially without a general manager and without obviously a manager. Now the fact that they had to, like you said, go out and find a manager with a month left before spring training does hurt them. But let's think about the Astros from a player's perspective. They have Altuve, one of the best players in baseball. Springer, one of the best young players in baseball. Correa, who's a monster. They have Bregman, who's literally one of the best players in baseball, second to none. Look at their pitching isn't godly. Obviously, they lost Cole, but they still have Verlander, right? So they still have these pieces that are there. The fact is that there's still some good managers out there on the market too that I think they could get. From a general manager's perspective, maybe they go with the player personnel, maybe they go with assistant GM. The Astros aren't done by any means. And the fact that they're in the AL West, like we talked about earlier, the AL West is terrible. The Mariners are bad, the Rangers are bad. The Angels are the only team that can be competitive with them, and like we've seen in recent years.
The Athletics.
And the Athletics are, I forgot about the Athletics. The Athletics could also make a push. As of now, the Athletics would be the favorite in the AL West.
Because of this, I'd say.
Because of this, and then the Angels. But once the Astros find a manager, and once they start playing ball games again, and they get distractions off their mind, they'll be fine. We'll see them in the playoffs again. It's not going to be a total, abomination of a franchise. They'll be fine.
But they are still, I mean, You have to looking from a fan's perspective. There are people who are calling him a joke. I mean, look, there's now basically like an asterisk next to their 2017 World Series. And yes, they still have it, but people aren't going to look at it the same. People aren't going to, I mean, the jokes are going to be, I guarantee you there's going to be trash can jokes on opening day. There's going to be people walking into the stadiums, whether with trash can like toys or shirts. It's going to happen. And I think that the Astros that's also slightly punishment because you might see a lower enrollment. I mean, look, I've seen on the Astros Instagram, there are people who are very proud of their team and they're not really affected by this. But there might be fans that are not necessarily like the diehards that say, I don't really want to support a team that's going to cheat. And so they might see a drop in attendance. They might see a drop in a lot of things. And they really, I don't really know if they thought this through. I don't know.
The fact that from a parent's perspective, the fact that they got punished and that they're handling this with the most class they can, I feel like the diehard fans will stay with the team just to show that, like, yeah, we served our punishment, right? Like, we saw our manager and our general manager go down. Let's see what this team can do now with all the distractions. This will be the real test for them this year.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think, yes, their past is messed up now. That 2017 World Series will always be like one of those thoughts that like, what is? But now moving forward, this Astros team will have to go through a lot of transitions, obviously, but I think they can do it. They have the leadership for it. Altuve is one of the best leaders in baseball. Bregman is one of the best players in baseball. Correa, Springer, that lineup's deadly still, right? Let's not forget about Verlander, one of the best pitchers of the decade. So, like, this Astros team won't be bad. Let's see how they handle the distractions, though. Let's see moving forward what these fans are all about.
And that's the fact of the matter. Obviously, we'll talk more about it when we get to the specialty show, but that's going to do it for today's podcast. A lot to talk about, but I mean, overall, really, really great show today. Nick, thank you for being the one to come on. Marco sadly couldn't make it, neither could Ryan, but hopefully the next time we have a podcast, the boys will be back and running. That'll most likely, the next show should be that specialty show, which will be a live show that'll take place around 3 or 3:30 on Blaze Radio. But I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who's listening to the podcast. Thank you for everyone who made this possible. Thank you, Nick, for coming on.
Yeah,
and I would like to say all have a very great week, and we'll see you all next time.
Tell me pretty lies, look me in the face, tell me that you love me.